Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, like and share.
Let's watch the story.
Once upon a time, there lived a little boy named Hansel and a little girl named Gretel. They were brother and sister, and they lived with their father and stepmother in a house in the woods. Their father was a woodcutter and his job didn't pay very well. The family was so poor that there was no food on the table to eat, and one night Hansel and Gretel's stepmother suggested they lead Hansel and Gretel into the woods and leave them there. Unfortunately, Hansel and Gretel overheard their stepmother's words, making them very sad. Hansel decided to creep outside and found some white pebbles, which shone brightly in the moonlight. Hansel filled his pockets with as many of the white pebbles as he could manage and crept back inside. The very next morning, the family went out for a walk in the woods. As they walked, Hansel dropped the white pebbles behind him. Further and further they walked into the forest. Hansel and Gretel grew tired. Their father made a fire and told them to rest. When Hansel and Gretel awoke, they were all alone. Fortunately, Hansel's plan had been a success, and they could follow the white stones all the way home. When they arrived back home, their father was overjoyed. However, their stepmother was very cross. Later that night, she told Hansel and Gretel's father that he must get rid of them again. The next day their stepmother handed the children 2 slices of bread for breakfast, and they set out off into the woods again. This time they walked a lot further into the forest, right into the heart of it. As they walked along, Hansel dropped breadcrumbs along the path. Once again, when the children were tired, their father built them a fire and told them to rest, and once again Hansel and Gretel fell asleep. Sure enough, the next morning they woke alone. Hansel was not worried. He told Gretel that he had left a trail of breadcrumbs behind so that they could find their way back. But when they looked for the breadcrumbs, they found that they had been eaten by the animals of the forest. Hansel and Gretel walked and walked and walked some more, and eventually, they found the most amazing house. It was made completely out of gingerbread and decorated with candy canes, gumdrops, lollipops, and icing, more sweets than both children had ever seen. The temptation was too much and Hansel and Gretel began to eat the sweets. Then all of a sudden an old woman came out of the house and invited them inside. But once the children were inside, the old woman turned very cruel. She locked Hansel in a cage and wanted to fatten him up, so she could eat him. The cruel old woman showed Gretel the oven where she was going to cook Hansel. This gave Gretel an idea. She decided to trick the cruel old woman. She told the cruel old woman that Hansel was far too big to fit inside the oven. The cruel old woman leant into the oven to take a closer look, and Gretel chose her moment and pushed her inside. Next, Gretel found the key to Hansel's cage and let him out. They were so happy that they could escape. Before they left, Hansel and Gretel found a chest full of gold coins. They decided to take the chest home with them. After a long and exhausting walk, Hansel and Gretel finally found a path that looked familiar. They ran excitedly towards their home, which they could see in the distance. They finally reached their home, and they saw their father standing outside. He told them that their stepmother had died, and Hansel and Gretel told their father that they now had enough riches to last a lifetime, and they would never go hungry again. The end.
Please subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon for next video.